Hey, it's Laura, and we're going to make some more stuff. Now, I went ahead and got started on my background, and I'm doing those off camera mainly because they take forever to dry. Even if you use your heat tool on it and stuff, they still take a couple hours with this canvas before they're completely dry and you can keep working on them. So it's always a good idea to do, 2 or 3 or more at a time if you like to work that way. If you like to work one at a time, by all means work one at a time. I've been known to do both. So this is going to be the second page. And we had our first page, and that's going to open up this way. So I kind of wanted to go with this page without duplicating exactly the colors. Now on this piece, I use one of my fabric fodder, how to make faux rusting on fabric. So I did the same sort of thing here with this circle. Now this circle, I just mixed together some of my favorite rusty looking colors and did it on, I have this little circle gel plate. So I love this thing. It comes in a mini set of a circle, square, and a triangle. I don't use a triangle much, but I do love the circle and I do love the square. So then I just had pressed that on there. But before I did that, let me back up. What I did to start with is I did the border edge, giving it some kind of tea-dye look. And I used Antique Linen Distress Spray Stain, which I sprayed on my nonstick mat, wet it down a little bit, and then just dipped the edges in around and did a little bit more towards the inside. You can see that on this side where it's kind of got, where you can see the color, kind of gives it more of a distressed look per se. And then I kind of crumpled it up a bit and used some of the Scorched Timber, which is one of the last colors, in the distress ink, and I use the ink. And that's where we get kind of these charcoaly kind of color bits. And I want to do some thread and stitching on those little bits to kind of bring them out. And then lastly, I use the Stencil Girl this Stencil Girl stencil, where I placed that and I did it in a titanium white acrylic, and then let that dry completely. And that's how you get these this white texture here. Well, I actually used heavy cream and a little titanium white. I mixed the two together to get this. And so that's what gives you that white. Now for this color back behind, what I did is I use my Caran d'Ache. I never know how to pronounce it. My Caran d'Ache. I love these crayons. And I'll do a little bit of a section. I don't want to do it down in here, but what I did is I had a little bit of this kind of yellowy color, orangish yellow. See, I would have called it orangish yellow. So I did a little bit of that, and then it has a little bit of the light olive that I did. And then it had some of this salmon color. And then on the outermost, I did the pink. So it was still kind of damp, so that works to your advantage when doing this, because these are water soluble. So you just do it super lightly. And I want this to extend up here further. So I'll demonstrate a little bit. So you're just doing it super light. You know how when you were a kid and you were coloring with maybe your babysitter, and your babysitter would always do it so perfect and light, whereas you were like, I'm telling stories of myself, I guess, here. So then I just take a baby wipe and I can smear this in here. Now, if I'm doing this down here over where it's the white acrylic, is that it wipes the color then off of that white. But see how that just kind of helps blend that in there? So kind of gave that little bit of color. Now, I also want to pop this gray. I've done it a couple times because I'm afraid to get too dark. Is I kind of want to drop a drop shadow around this circular shape. And then again, just taking your baby wipe, just kind of giving a smooth over. It gives just enough dampness to the water-soluble crayon that it kind of smears it a bit. And it'll look darker, and then as it dries, you're like going, oh, I thought it was darker. Like I said, I did it 3 times. So, but using these, you can get a subtle color, or you can give it more color. But I just wanted more of a very subtle pink towards green with the orange and yellow in between, kind of a partial rainbow kind of thing. But to give that kind of shadow of color back behind there. Excuse me. So, so that's how we kind of got this background done. Let me throw a little heat to dry that a little bit. And then, because I still, like I said, I wanted to tie in with this page over here so they're not completely disparate. They don't have to feel continuous. They're different backgrounds, they're different fabrics, but I want them to at least live in the same neighborhood, so to speak. So what I want to do is have a piece of black that goes down this side, and then I'll be doing some stuff on this, but I also want it to wrap around to the other side. And when you are doing fabric pages, like we've kind of started to be doing, when you're doing fabric pages that have 2 sides, rather than covering over the back, which, you know, what was my intention on this one was covering over the back, but then I would have lost this. So just, so in some situations, you may want it 2 layers of fabric so that the backside doesn't show, but in some cases like this, it worked out perfectly. But so I want this piece of the black fabric that I also used on this one. So it's the same fabric, so it kind of ties together. So this will be the backside that I'll be doing something with in the next video. But I wanted it to be about 2 inches wide. I didn't want it to center, that point to center on this circle. And I wanted to extend over a little bit and down a little bit, because I don't want everything to be just perfect. But I'm also, with this circle, continuing this circle that started on this one with these concentric circles. Excuse me. Now, that may break on this backside, but having some sort of thing that carries through other, like here, I've got this because this is the garden book of this set, or the garden section of this set. So everything's going to have either leaves or something that you could potentially have in the garden. So anyway, okay, so this is ready to be adding. We're going to add some plant stuff on here next. And I'm going to be using a couple of different stencils. These are actually both Crafters Workshop. This was a Stencil Girl, but both of these are actually Crafters Workshop. And I love, this is a very fun one to use that's got a little more personality to it and not terribly realistic. This one can go either way, making it realistic or not. So I'm eventually going to stitch this down, but because of what I want to do on it, I don't want to stitch it down just yet. Because what we are going to do, let's place this entirely inside the black, but I want some space over here, is we are going to use pan pastels on fabric. I love using pan pastels on fabric. They work incredibly well, even on the dark fabric. So here's kind of a sample piece that I have of this same vine, so to speak, done in pan pastels. And you can mix and blend colors on pan pastels much like you do with paint. And look at that, how vibrant it is on the black background. Here, these little dot ones, that's from this guy. This is a piece from this one. So you can see how you can do all sorts of yummalicious colors with that. So because this is a pigment and it's a powder onto the fabric, before you do too much, after you get it all painted on, you can use other pastels too. It doesn't have to be pan pastels. The pan pastels with the stencils, I find, is just the easiest to get it on nicely. But you will need to use some sort of a fixative before you're handling it much. And I tend to like to do a couple of coats, 2 to 3 light coats rather than a super heavy one. You don't want to saturate your fabric, but you do want to fix that pan pastel powder down to your fabric. And then it won't smear. So with this, I like to use a workable fixative, the Krylon. There's other brands of fixative. In a pinch, if you can't find a fixative, an aerosol spray of, excuse me, hairspray also works. We used to use Aquanet back when I was in school, but I don't know if Aquanet still even exists. I haven't bought that kind of hairspray in a very long time. But in a pinch, if you're not able to get a hold of a fixative, that'll work. So anyway, so just like if you were stenciling with paint, using the pan pastels, super easy. I personally use a little makeup sponge thingies. You can get these online off of Amazon or something. Sorry, I have the hockey game on, so I'm watching it that a little bit too. And so you can use these little makeup applicators, and they work really great. You can use any kind of sponges. They come with you can get tools that are for pan pastels, but I just find these give me the most control. And like with anything, layering is what kind of, with pan pastels, is what gives you the cool effects. So, you know, with this, I go through with a base layer. I kind of did a little bit of a lighter olive, excuse me, and then I went in with some darker olive, this kind of teal color, and then some light stuff up here. Here I started out with some browns, and I kind of gave it kind of an ochre color up here and a rustier color down here towards the bottom. So we're going to do this same sort of thing on here, and then do some also on the light background, because they work great on either dark or light backgrounds. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that. And I'll probably speed this section up just so you can see how I do it. All right, so at this point, I've kind of got it blended how I like it. You can always lay your stencil back over the top and add any further bits that you want. You can also freehand some stuff in there. You can use pastel pencils to add some bits and pieces. But I like how this is looking. Now, I do want to do some on this light side too. And then we're going to go ahead and spray everything. So, but I want to have, I think I like it that way. I think I want this one kind of popping out there. Now, I don't want to get these guys on there. And so what I do in those situations where I don't want to accidentally, though you can pretty much wipe a lot of this off with a wet wipe before you fix it. So I'm just going to put cover over that guy. It also is going to help hold everything in place. Because I kind of just want that guy tucked in from behind. And so let me just a couple more pieces of tape to keep those spots that I don't want. And the way this one's set up, it's kind of tight. So, all right. So I'm going to flip this guy out of the way, but I want him to where I can flip him back down so I know what he looks like. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. Now, I am constantly using the same thing, the same little makeup thing. I used to be really like, oh my God, I can't mix my colors even a little bit. How awful would that be? And I kind of got over it. When you start playing with the pan pastels and stuff, you find you're blending it anyway. So just using, I kind of usually have like a green one, maybe I have a blue one, that sort of thing. But you can actually knock a lot of the color out of these as well. So let's go ahead and do this one. I'm going to start kind of with a light base. But see, I like having that color that kind of just comes from what's on the sponge to kind of give it some mix too. And just like with a brush, you're wanting to put most of your pressure going down and not at an angle, and you're less likely to get spillage under your underneath your stencil that way. Don't be afraid to blow some of the extra powder away. And you can see how the acrylic paint, just like on this circle, the acrylic paint underneath before I stamp that on there, and down here, you may not be able to see it on camera, but it acts a little bit like a resist. And so you're just not getting quite as much. It shows like a texture underneath on these leaves, which is kind of cool. Now, a lot of the rusty color came through, which I wanted it to do. I could have gone with a fresh, clean sponge applicator. But I knew I was going to come in with some green. And again, the layering. Let's come back here. Got a little overzealous with that. But you can always blend in colors, much like you do with paint. Then I can use a clean one to kind of blend it a little bit more without it adding further color. Holding it down, I can lift it up and kind of see. Ooh, I like how that's looking. A little bit of super dark in there. You can kind of dab it, much like you do if you were a paintbrush too. And a little bit more darker down on these lower sections, maybe a little darker olivey tone. Then I can add some real light stuff just to give some highlights. And the biggest thing I found with the pan pastels is just play with them. It's like any tool you used. Kind of just play with what works for you. So practice on some extra pieces or something. But see how crisp and clean that looks? And it gives that kind of gardeny thing. Now I do want to do another little bit of this guy, which is the same as that one. So I want to do that in the same colors. And I'm just flicking with my finger. I'm just kind of going like this to flick some of the pigment out so it's not so saturated. So now we can go with the brown to add those little dots, and you can see how they look different on the white versus on the black, and how it doesn't seem to matter whether it's on the dark background or the light background. It has just amazing pigmentation. And I love that. Rusty color, get these lower ones, some of that rustiness. And the olive to give a little of that. A little touch of the teal on the edge. So then we'll be doing another, maybe a little bit of this guy right here. And he kind of bends that way. So I want to make sure that I have my stencil wiped off, the powders off of it. This, and you can layer them so that one kind of sits on top of the other, and that works out fine. Because these, the pan pastels will layer, and that's how you get such a cool kind of effect with that. So this kind of olivey tone. Goldeny olive, and then I go to the little bit next shade darker, and they just came out with just an absolute ton of new colors in the pan pastels, because Golden, who makes, you know, the acrylic paints and stuff, they purchased pan pastels. So now you're going to be getting all of the amazing colors that come along with being in the Golden family now. So they get, you're going to have a lot more art specific, you know, specific colors that are kind of named colors in, so any of your favorite acrylic paints that you get in like Golden paints, which is kind of like the Cadillac of the Cadillac of acrylic paints, I feel anyway. They're my favorite personally. But now with Golden being in control of the color palette for pan pastels, it's just so exciting. So anyway, there you go with some of the leaves and stuff on there, and I like how that looks. So it keeps the graphic quality of how I started this thing with these graphic collages. So it keeps that kind of thing, but now it's giving us the effect of having this kind of crisp kind of lines. And then I can do some stitching and stuff. But the one thing I do want to add up here, because I've got all this area here, and these are some Diane Erickson stencils, and she does art to wear stuff that is just like mind-blowing. And I love this dragonfly. For those of you who know me, know I love dragonflies. And so I'm going to pop this puppy in right here. Let's start down his body. The blue. I have a little green in there. Gives it that. And there are sparkly ones. Now I'm going to use a lighter blue to start the layering in of these wings. But there are sparkly pen pastels. And these are my own personal pan pastels. I didn't get sent these, so. If I'm ever using a product that I've been sent samples to use, I will always let you know. Let's see how that's, oh, that looks so yummy. So get those wings, and then I'll add some darkening towards the edges too, so that it stays. But I love using pen pastel on fabric. The fabric's got the toothiness, and so, and you can do it freehand. I'm having fun doing it with the stencils, so that I just don't have to work as hard. So stencils are not cheating. Okay, so a little brown by his head to give a little shadowing. Down by his little patouche down here, give a little shadowing down there. Let's lift it up. Oh, yeah, I like how that looks. Any other colors I want to pop in there to give him just a little, this yellow. I'm going to add just a touch of yellow green by his head, just to give him that kind of, trying to give it a little iridescence. Let's make his legs a little darker. Those are his back legs. Sweet, I like how that looks. So I can now lift that up. So then that gives me that cool dragonfly in there. And I'm loving how this looks. I always like having this guy to sit next to, how they're going to be facing each other. And I love how that is looking. So now my next step is I will go outside. Anytime you're working with an aerosol, especially like these guys really have a lot of smell to them, but with an aerosol, always use in an extremely well ventilated place, preferably taking it outside. So I just go on my porch and I give it a good couple squirts. But a couple, do 2 to 3 light layers, spray it, let it sit for a minute, 30 seconds, and then spray it again, sit for a few minutes, and spray it again. And then you can let it dry. And then I'll go ahead and get this stitched down. And I am going to be doing some highlighting stitching on here. What I was going to do with this black, I haven't decided. I may still do that with some single threads or on my machine rather than with the thicker embroidery. Instead of using 3, I may just use 1 of the embroidery and add some enhancements where I see fit. I know I have a little piece here that I want to do kind of right there of an added on piece. But I may do some stitching on the machine around some of these guys, and we'll see. Take the cat hair off. So anyway, that is what our next page is looking like. And just to review, I did some edges in kind of a rusty tea dye kind of look. I did a stencil in a white cream color. Then over the top of that, I did with a gel plate, I made this kind of rusted looking circle. And then behind it in this shadow, bringing in a little bit of color with the water soluble crayons, and then brought in my pan pastels to add some foliage in on both the light background and the dark background. And you can see the vibrancy of the pan pastels is successful on either the light or the dark. And then I added my dragonfly, and it's good to go. So I'll go ahead and get the stitching done, and both by machine and by hand, and put the photographs of it. You'll either see it next time, or if I get it done this evening, I'll put it at the end of the video. So anyway, have some fun. Make some stuff. Thanks a bunch.